Welcome to this edition of Safe and Sound. I'm Kirk Webb, and we're here today with Mike Mellor from the city of Show Low, and we're going to talk about some of what is your job and what do you do and with the city of Show Low, and kind of go from there. So, welcome.
Thank you. The title of my job is community development specialist, but basically what I do is I do code enforcement, and the code enforcement that I enforce has to do with junk or garbage around yards or non-functioning vehicles. And then I do some other issues like signage and different things like that around the city.
So it's kind of to help make the city of Show Low stay beautiful.
Absolutely,
All right.
and that's just what it is. The city of Show Low has basically taken a proactive approach. So a lot of times people will think that their neighbors or somebody's complaining about them if I leave a little notice on their door that asks them to clean up, but really it's just me. I'm out driving around, I notice things, I then write down a little note and ask people to please take care of that item or whatever I'm needing them to take care of.
And it not only is a beautification issue, it's also could be a health hazard, could be a fire hazard, could be lots of different things, correct?
Absolutely, and it does fall on a lot of those categories. I mean, when we talk about health, safety, that type of thing, I know I got a property right now that I've been working with, and really this is the issue. There's so much, I'm going to call it stuff. I would say it's garbage, they say it's stuff, but there's so much stuff around this property that the cats get in there and basically are breeding and having their little ones in there, and so that gets to be this gigantic cat haven. And so what we're hoping to do is once we get it cleaned up, that'll kind of control the cat population in that area. Another thing that, of course, you being with the fire department, accumulation of needles, branches,
Right.
small trees, things like that, in some of these denser neighborhoods. And what I'll do is I'll get a hold of the owners of the property and I will ask them to please clean up those type of items. And as you know, if somebody throws out a cigarette or something like that, they can cause a fire, and then it's just going to spread from there.
Right, and it's interesting because just recently we've had, you wouldn't think that we'd be getting a brush fire in, say, February or March, because one, it's too cold. We've had a whole bunch of snow recently, things like that, but here again, we've actually had some brush or fires that started alongside the roadway from either possibly a cigarette, or I think in most cases it's been a chain dragging or a flat tire on a trailer or a vehicle and creating those sparks. And here we are still basically in winter and we're getting fires starting alongside the road. So it doesn't matter the time of year, a fire can start if conditions are correct, just right. So, and I know I have routinely gotten people call into the station or you guys have sent me a request to go check a certain property, and do we deem it as a fire hazard? Do we need to address this situation and whatnot? And so we've already been working hand in hand with some of these properties, and because we live in the wildland urban interface, we're right smack dab in the forest or right on the edge of the forest, and it will affect come summertime when the larger forest fires kick out, and it does have an effect on us as a community.
Absolutely, and as you know, here on the mountain, it seems like to me that we're just right now, the wind is going to start picking up. Things are going to start drying out.
Right.
With all this moisture, we're obviously going to see a lot more weeds and grass. And that falls in my category, or my job title is that I will ask people to mow or cut down their weeds and grass if it gets too high around their residences. And it's not only for them and for their safety, it's for everybody that's living around them, and like you said earlier, it's a beautification thing. We're trying to make Show Low look like a beautiful community.
Yeah, and we live here, we buy groceries and all that. We don't want to live in a dump. So yeah, we need to take care of our properties and so we can be able to be proud of where we live, plus be safe.
Absolutely.
Create a safe environment, not only for our own families, but our neighbors. We got some of our little subdivisions and things like that, that the homes are really close together. And if one home catches on fire, it's very possible to catch the next home just from exposure. I know that's routinely one of our first things that we do as we go and fight in a structure fire. We're looking at what those exposures are, and a lot of times it could be the neighboring house, and we're protecting exposures as well as putting the fire out itself. So our job can be intense sometimes. So, but so what are some of the other, I think the city has some programs to be able to help these individuals kind of take care of, and, because honestly, dump fees can be a little extravagant or hard for some people to go and take care of that. So what are some of the programs the City of Show Low provides?
Well, obviously, most of the people are aware of the bulk pickup. And the bulk pickup comes on the first of the odd month. It's on your garbage day. You're allowed to take out some bulkier items that you don't put in your dumpster and set them next to your dumpster, and that waste management will pick those items up. One of the things we need to be kind of clear on is that some of the items that are being put out there, waste management will not pick up. As a matter of fact, I'd left a notice for a resident the other day asking them to remove a mattress. They had taken a mattress out there, and waste management won't pick up mattresses. And so some other things that they won't pick up is appliances, washers, dryers, refrigerators. I left a notice for another residence that had a refrigerator out in their front yard, and I'm sure they were hoping that waste management would pick that up on the bulk pickup. But here's the other good thing. The City of Show Low actually has 1 week during the year, and it's usually the first week in June, and I can kind of clarify those days.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it'll start on Monday, June the 3rd, and it'll go till Friday, June the 7th, and we call it the bulky item pickup. And basically you can take, and this is what's crazy, I've never seen this before in any other city I've worked in.
Right.
But you can take just basically about everything you got that you want to throw out, you can put it out there on the curb, and the city will come and pick it up. You can take your refrigerators, your appliances, like it says.
So that's the time to be able to get rid of those items that waste management can't pick up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the city comes and picks those items up. They kind of sort through them a little bit. There's some of them they just take straight over to S&D, which is the salvage yard here in Show Low.
Right.
And then the others they take over to the transfer station. Now here's it's interesting. If you show like a water bill or anything like that, you can take the items over to the transfer station on your own for free. You can take them over there during that time period, June the 3rd through the 7th. If you take them over there, you just show that to them, and they'll let you dump it for free. Now, also we have our green waste, and that's going to start on May the 13th, and it'll basically go through the 5-day or 6-day week right there till Saturday, May the 18th, and then it'll start again on May the 20th, and it'll go till May the 25th, where you can take the green waste. And sometimes people don't really realize where the green waste is located, but it is located east of town here on Highway 60,
Right.
but it's there at Perkins Cinders. You go, like you're going to Perkins Cinders, but you go right past Perkins Cinders.
Stay to the right.
Yep, stay to the right.
Follow
Get up
all
on-
the way around to the back side of the pit.
Yep, get back up on the hill there, same thing. Show them your water bill, your power bill, whatever, show them that they're a resident of the city, and you can dump for free on that. And
Nice.
like I said, this is just a super program.
Right, because any of those items can be very pricey to get rid of, and now if the City of Show Low is willing to pick up that tab, so to speak.
Absolutely. And this just for instance, I think I took a horse trailer, I had just a few items, some carpet, little pieces of plastic, some different things like that, and I took it to the transfer station, and it ended up costing me $20 to take it there, But in this type of situation, it's free of charge. You can get it done for free.
Saving $20, $40, that's huge in some people's pocketbooks.
Absolutely.
So
Huge.
and so to to confirm these dates, they can call the city, or is it posted somewhere on the city website, things like that?
It will be. It will be posted. You know, you're hearing it first right here. But
Nice.
it will be posted on the website. You're also going to get a flyer in your water bill so that you're aware of
Nice.
when it is. I also, being the code enforcement officer, I'm going to be going around, and if I see some properties that have some excess items, and I think we were kind of talking about this earlier. It's like people, sometimes I call it organized clutter.
Right.
Everything's organized, but it's like cluttery, and it's a good opportunity to get rid of some of that clutter that they have.
Right.
And I will probably be bringing around some of these flyers and then just attach them to a little notice that says, hey, please remember to do this. This is a good opportunity to get rid of your stuff. And so, and I know, I'm not going to encourage this, but I know last year, even like on Friday morning or Thursday afternoon, I went and got after some people that didn't get their stuff out there like I felt like they should have.
Right.
And they were able to even take and put that out there after their garbage day. And the city did and still went and cleaned it up. So, you know, like I says, the city is really bending over backwards on this item. They want the city to look beautiful. I'm not saying this is going to happen in the near future, but we've talked about maybe making it 2 times a year instead of 1 time a year.
That would be awesome.
But right now it's just 1 time a year, so please take advantage of it.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think you can find that, like you said, in any other location where the city or town is gonna pick that up for you. I know that in the past we've had some subdivisions working on that green waste type of thing, that they had some monies from their homeowners association dues that they would provide a dumpster, and people can go and fill that up with their green waste and things like that. Because it's not the easiest thing to get rid of it sometimes. So, and plus it becomes costly, and then I do like what you said about, leaving a note at the door, giving them an idea of where to start, what things to kind of look at. We do a similar program with our, when we're dealing with FireWise component, the FireWise program, and being that we live in the forest, now what things to help make our forest healthy. Because if we have an unhealthy forest, we're going to start seeing trees dying in mass, and then I know people look at their property and they don't want to cut any trees down, but they may not realize that you might have too many trees and they're starving, and then at some point they're probably all going to die. Now what are you going to end up with, a vacant lot, or a lot with no trees, or you got to now replant a whole bunch of trees? So giving people an idea of where to start with simple things to keep their home looking beautiful, plus save their trees, which then in turn, in the event of a wildfire, it's easier for us to help protect their property.
Absolutely. And I know we had talked about this once before, or a little bit earlier, Kirk, that just coming up, either going down to Globe or going down to Pace, and you come up the Rimway and you can see, where the dead trees are, and there's just clumps of dead trees all over the forest right now. And
Right.
you've got a really good point. It's just they're so thick and so conjected, and then all it takes is and I went to a training on this where one tree gets stressed and gets the bark beetle, then it just spreads to the other trees, and the next thing you know,
Right.
you're losing the whole bunch.
And when you have a tree that's unhealthy and those beetles get in, or whatever is coming in, even the fungus, getting in with the trees, and it can attack those trees, and if they're not healthy, they have no way to defend themselves from these beetles or whatever the case, and so it spreads from there. And in fact, just this last year, neighbor across the street from where I was living had a tree that fell, kind of landed on his little shed in the backyard, and was threatening to fall into the power lines. And this was I would say a 16-inch, 18-inch diameter tree. And on the outside, it looked perfectly healthy. Once Navapache Electric was the one that the electric service company that had to come in there and actually went and removed this tree down to the point where they could, so it didn't fall into their lines and destroy power lines. And it was interesting to note that after they cut it down and we looking at it, the inside of this pine tree, which I haven't seen this in before, was totally rotted out. It looked like, oak trees will do that quite routinely, that the center rots out and because the outer edge is what's alive in the tree anyway. Mm-hmm. And so, but that inside of this tree, and I never would have guessed that tree would have, because of the winds that we had that day, it just knocked it over. And luckily his shed was keeping it from falling in the power lines. But yeah, it was just interesting that tree was unhealthy. And, luckily it didn't, so far it hasn't seemed to affect his other trees. And, but if we live, and I use the analogy when I'm talking with some homeowners about gardening. Most people understand the concept of gardening and realize that, hey, when you go and plant, like say corn, and you put 4 or 5 seeds in the hill, once they start growing, well, you pluck the smaller ones out and you save the 1 or 2 that are growing great, and that's how you end up with some good corn. Well, we live in a big, huge garden, and if we don't help take care of, manage, and because 100 years ago, the forest was not this congested, this overgrown with so many trees. You've got to get rid of the small and weaker ones in order for your nicer trees, or the ones that you want to grow better. You have to help nurture them, and because they're all fighting for the same amount of water, the same amount of sunshine. They need all, just like plants in a garden, they need to have those things, those nutrients. And if you're overcrowded and overgrown, well, you're going to have nothing but an unhealthy little tiny twigs growing up everywhere. And I see this so often, and that's what helps propagate forest fires and keeps them going. And so how do we, and I look at it as an education issue. How do we educate the public? And I think you're kind of on the same lines of, you're working inside the city limits, and yeah, we're working with, but yet, I mean, how often do you come across where you need to tell somebody they probably need to thin some trees out?
And it happens not real often, but it does happen every now and again. And, it's really easy. A lot of times, these are summer visitors that come up during the summer. And I usually, if I can find a phone number for them, I just call them and talk to them about those kind of issues and say, hey, we need to work on this. And most people are very receptive about it, and they understand that the situation and how they, have got to address this and get things cleaned up and fixed up. And it's just like you're talking about trees. That falls kind of under my category too. If I look and see dying or diseased trees, then I address it. I know we had a situation last year where Torion had several trees that were up next to another piece of property, and they were diseased and dying, and so we ended up having to, I made a phone call to them, and they said, okay, we're going to bring in a tree service. I think they removed over 150 trees from the Torion properties,
right,
just because they were infested with the bark beetle and just trying to clean up around the area. And he says that the property that had complained about it were extremely thankful. Like I says, they knew that they needed to address it, and they had already had people coming in to take care of it. So
right,
it was just, I put it on their map. This needs to be taken care of, and so they did.
And I think, and I'm finding the same kind of thing with our red tag, green tag program, where we send the crews out to do a very simple assessment of people's properties, and we pick little small areas throughout the town and change it up every year so that we're, because it's too overwhelming to try to do the entire fire district. I mean, we cover, I think, pretty close to 300 and some odd square miles of area, and I don't know how many properties within that, but it's a large amount. But on our little tag door hangers that we leave with the people wherever we're doing those areas, it gives them an idea of where to start. So you offer that suggestion. Hey, look at this. Because I think people do get maybe a little overwhelmed, or I don't know where to begin, or that's just too large of a project for me to do. But simple things, cleaning the rain gutters, the leaves and debris on top of your roofs itself, decks, if they're not enclosed underneath the deck, and that's where embers can fly from 3-4 miles away from a forest fire. And if there's debris and clutter underneath the deck, and that's where the embers are going to go. So if it's not closed in, that's an easy start for a fire to get going, which will destroy a house in a heartbeat. Simple things like that. That first 5 feet, cleaning it out away from your home, making it where there's nothing combustible in that 5-foot area and things like that. So there's lots of simple things, but people need to be reminded where to start and kind of what to do. But, and I know, like, let's say there's, I know Pine Top Fire, the county, I think the city and the town of Pine Top Lakeside have all kind of joined together. We're trying to work on obtaining grant money to be able to thin some of these properties out. So they've been pretty successful, and I think it's, you know, it's been mainly up in the Pine Top Lakeside area where that grant money, but I think we're trying to spread that out across the county, which would include the city of Show Low and, you know, and in our Timber Mesa Fire and Medical District areas, so that we can, because we do need, and thinning properties can be rather expensive, and so.
Well, and if I remember right on that grant information, and because I'd looked into it about a year ago, is you're right, Pine Top Lakeside pretty much controls that grant, and a lot of it is because, and this is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't want to have Show Low competing against Pine Top, because then it splits up that monies. And so where they have the money, even here in Show Low, you can contact Pine Top Lakeside. Now you got to understand the grant doesn't, and this is again my understanding, the grant doesn't cover the complete cleanup, but it covers about half of that cleanup.
Right.
And so it, you know, that's a major plus. If say you can't afford, say it was $1,000 to clean up the property, you can come up with 500. They're going to come up with the other 500. One of the things I just kind of want to touch on, one of the things we talked about is, you know, if you have a neighbor that's older, and that's what I probably come across as a lot of older people, one, they don't have a pickup truck.
Right.
A lot of them don't have the physical abilities to go out there and clean up their property, and it's just really nice if you happen to have a neighbor like that, maybe go over and offer some services and help them out a little bit. Clean up their pine needles, maybe cut down a couple of trees that are, you know, kind of crowding or doing things that they need to get rid of. And if, like I said, if you got a pickup truck, haul it to the green waste. Right now is a good time to, you know, you get it in that May area, go over there and get it done.
Right.
Also on the bulk pickup, they will come in and pick up the needles, pine needles, if you'll bag them up and put them by the dumpsters. They will pick up branches, but you got to bundle them up. They got to be cut short, bundled up. They will pick up.
So
the
they
branches.
want them tied up, and is that what, bundled up that way?
Yeah,
gotcha.
tied up.
So it's easier to pick them up, and because they're, I mean, if they're doing the whole entire city and everybody's putting this stuff out, it's time-consuming job.
Time-consuming and physical. You know, they have like a 40-pound limit that they're going to pick up. Right. So that's another thing. You know, like I said, you throw those mattresses out there and stuff like that, and people, you know, they're not going to pick that up. They're too bulky, too big. Couches, they're not going to get that stuff. But if you know, smaller items
right.
that are out there, I think I seen some TV stands this last month, just small TV stands, and they did pick them up.
But now we're not looking at, they're not going to be able to pick up hazardous waste type materials either with that, correct? I mean, we got to look at.
No, and I think they're very limited on the electronics that they pick up.
Right.
We had talked a little earlier about it. Last year, the city of Show Low had a electronic dump / hazardous waste dump.
Right.
I was there at the city office building. I was telling you earlier, it was crazy because they come in and put plastic all over the parking lot.
Right.
To contain the parking lot when they brought the items in. The city of Show Low actually has a grant that pays. We have to pay people to come up and do that, but they will pick up all of these electronics and hazardous waste items that you have in your residence that you'd like to get. We haven't got a date set on it because what we do is we don't do that until we get the grant in place and the money's there. But it usually comes around in the fall of the year. So like I said, sometimes if you go down here to the transfer station, you got a big screen TV, and they go, "Wow, we ain't taking that."
Right.
You're going to have to hold on to it till we have this electronic dump.
But it's nice to know that you're applying for that grant money to be able to provide that service for them.
Absolutely.
So, so it's interesting how many different programs there are within the city, and even outside of that, with the fuel reduction grants, as far as the thinning of properties, trees and whatnot, and they have different forms of that. I think there's a 90-10 grant where the grant pays 90% of the grant and you only have to pay 10%, things like that. So or there's the 50-50 grant where, like you were explaining. So there are different versions. You need to call and find out, get on that list, but get on the list whether you can get to it or not, because if that can help you out, great.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the city's website and to when it goes out in your water bill and things like that, of those notifications, and mark it down on your calendar to remind yourself. Because I know, I tell people that my CRM, which I'm the community risk manager, I tell people it stands for can't remember much, because I do forget. But it's so write things down, and I know with myself, when I write something down, it's a lot easier for me to remember it. And it's like, or at least, what did I do? Write that down somewhere. But it's been a pleasure being able to talk with you and discuss some of the programs the City of Shoalo provides, talking about forest health and different things like that. And, so let's all join together and let's keep our community beautiful. Spread that out, not only in just the City of Shoalo, further out, everybody. Take that time and let's be proud of our mountain community and take advantage of the opportunities that are there to help get rid of some of this waste and save some money. So once again, Mike Mellor is here from the City of Shoalo with us on this edition of Safe and Sound, and thank you for joining us, and hope to see you next month on our next edition of Safe and Sound. I'm Kirk Webb. Thanks for joining.